come from a very mixed family. Some of my family have been here for 12 generations. But my Nantucket grandfather was a descendant of the English settlers who came here in 1659. And they had a tremendous sense of who they were. And that made them rather resistant to other people who came here later who were not descended from the English settlers. On the other hand, my grandmother was an immigrant from Finland, and she moved into this household of descended Nantucketers. And then my grandfather died 20 years before I was born, so the household in which I grew up was a Finnish household. It was my grandmother and her sisters who would spend time with us. But everything in the house itself and everything in it was very old Nantucket.
My mother came with my grandmother, and I'm not sure where they landed. That part I never knew. They would talk about the old country, so you get bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just what my country's like. They were more worried about being American than being passing on what they had come from. Because there was no great Shakespeare in Cape Verde. You came here because you came here to survive.
On the day of the rededication, I called Augie, and Augie had seen the story in the paper too, and he knew that he and Rookie weren't invited. And then I called Rob Benchley, and Rob hadn't been invited either. So then I called the office of the trustees of reservations, who are the people who pretty much have all the Great Point except for that little piece where the lighthouse actually stands, which belongs to the government. And I just got voicemail.
I don't know what they did at Great Point when they had a rededication with Mrs. Kennedy, but I know what they did. I wasn't invited, and I'm not bothered that I'm not invited, but what story did they have? What story could they possibly give? Because I don't know anybody that was out there that had anything to do with Great Point.
So we decided we would have a free public celebration, not by invitation, at the Whaling Museum at noon and here at the Box at 5 p.m. to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the restoration of Great Point Life. As for Augie Ramos, he was here before I left the island, but it was during my donut hole years that he came into his own, winning election to the Nantucket Board of Selectmen, demolishing the Seacliff Inn, traveling to Florida to help after Hurricane Andrew, supporting the restoration of the African Meeting House, instrumental in the protection and reconsecration of the Mayacamet Indian Burial Ground, and 25 years ago this year, working with his son Rookie to rebuild the core of Great Point Lighthouse.
I love that picture. It's looking up inside, obviously. And so you and Rookie provided all the concrete for this
All the
project?
concrete, yes.
Yeah. Do you remember how many yards it was for the whole?
There's 300 yards for the map. I forgot what the tower was. It was 7 different times went up there, but I forgot how many.
A lot.
But the map was 300 yards.
300 yards, that's a lot of concrete.
How long did it take to get paid?
That's why we started at 1 o'clock. We have an agreement with the contractor, the general contractor, that we get paid once the material's on the point. And so we called the office, and he had a little trouble with my bookkeeper. And so he called back. He says, "Have Augie be ready. We're going to come and get him, take him off the point." And so I told him that I'm all set. I'm having Kenny Coffin that told me off the point. And that morning, he landed at my tennis courts in the helicopter, and he had the checkbook. And we went to work at 1 o'clock. Being black, you have to be better. You have to have a product that nobody has, and when you sell that product, it has to be better. That'd be material or labor. You have to do it better than the other guy, because the other guy gets a job before you do.
Thank you so much for everything you do.
Can the short guy come in front of the tall guy? Yeah, can you come to front, please? Brad, in front. There you go.
Thank you. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. John, would you please get in the picture? Beside one.
All right, Johnny McLaughlin. You know to figure a photo up.
Can you get close to Augie and kiss him, okay? Just get a little.
You want me to go down? Yeah. Down.
You get it too?
All right, thank you all for coming.
My Indian burial ground. There's 220 or 230 burials there. Supposedly that people that died from the disease that came on an Irish potato boat or something, Fran, was it?
Well, I think they like to blame the Irish, but we don't know for sure. But it was a nasty epidemic.
Yeah. But then John Peters at the time thought they died from a disease, but he called it the club disease. He thought they were clubbed. And the skulls we found at least two. They had fractured skulls. I don't know what disease that did, but other than club.
But I discovered in old diaries that in the 1830s, when there was a craze for phrenology, you know, checking out the bumps on the head, people were crazy to get a hold of old skulls and take them to meetings and talk about the skulls. People came out here with shovels and desecrated these graves. And one diary said there was nothing left out here worth digging up anymore. So any skulls that survived may have been bashed by shovels with people trying to dig up skulls. It's an ugly chapter in our history that people would desecrate a graveyard just because it was an Indian graveyard. When I'd come home and began to talk to Cape Verdeans, Augie and I moved a little more closely together. And the business of the Wampanoag cemetery and of the restoration of the African meeting house were two issues that brought us together. The cemetery business was a different issue. Augie has close ties with John Peters and with Wampanoag communities at Aquina and Mashpee. And that was another challenge for me. I could go through public records, court records and so forth to write the Wampanoag history of Nantucket, but we don't have any surviving Nantucket Wampanoags. And connecting with mainland and vineyard Wampanoags has been, if anything, even more challenging than connecting with Nantucket Cape Verdeans. I've really profited from my connection with Augie to bridge to that community.